The autumn of 1888 brought a palpable chill to London's East End, and it wasn't just the weather. Fear, a cold and creeping dread, had settled over the gaslit streets of Whitechapel. The string of brutal murders had turned unease into outright panic. Women who walked the streets at night, already facing hardship, now contended with a new, unseen terror. Every shadow seemed to hold a threat. Every approaching footstep sent a jolt of fear through the heart. The community was on edge, and trust was a currency in short supply. People eyed their neighbors with suspicion. The jovial atmosphere of the local pubs was replaced by hushed, fearful whispers. Who was he? A doctor, a butcher, a quiet lodger living just down the hall. The mystery deepened with each passing day, turning a bustling district into a labyrinth of fear. The police were drowning in a sea of dead ends. At Scotland Yard, exhausted detectives worked around the clock. Maps of Whitechapel were covered in pins and notes, tracing the killer's supposed movements. They interviewed hundreds of people, followed up on countless leads, but each one led nowhere. The pressure from the public and the press was immense. They weren't just hunting a man, they were hunting a phantom, a ghost who materialized out of the London fog, did his terrible work and vanished without a trace. The frustration was etched on the faces of every officer, from the constable on the beat to the inspectors at the very top. They were facing a new kind of evil, one that defied all known patterns of criminal behavior. Then came the letters. On September 27th, a letter arrived at the Central News Agency. Written in red ink, it was taunting and arrogant. It began with the chilling words, "Dear Boss," and for the first time, gave the killer a name. The author bragged about his crimes and promised more to come. He signed it, "Yours truly, Jack the Ripper." The police initially dismissed it as a cruel prank, one of hundreds of hoax letters they were receiving. But then, a few days later, another body was found, and the nature of the crime seemed to match the letter's gruesome promises. Suddenly, the Dear Boss letter felt terrifyingly real. The name Jack the Ripper was published in the newspapers, and it spread like wildfire. The hoax had inadvertently created a legend, giving a name to the faceless terror of Whitechapel. The single act of media sensationalism transformed the killer from a local menace into an international icon of horror. The panic reached a fever pitch. Vigilance committees were formed by concerned citizens who took to patrolling the streets themselves, armed with whatever they could find. The police presence in Whitechapel was doubled, then tripled. Undercover officers disguised themselves as dock workers, beggars, and even women, hoping to lure the killer into a trap. But Jack the Ripper was always one step ahead. It seemed as if he could see every move the police made, or perhaps he was simply lucky. The cat-and-mouse game was entirely one-sided. The city held its breath, waiting for the next strike, but the killer's pattern was unpredictable. He was a master of his domain, the labyrinthine alleyways and dimly lit courtyards of the East End. As October drew to a close, another piece of this grim puzzle arrived. George Lusk, the head of the Whitechapel Vigilance Committee, received a small cardboard box. Inside was a portion of a human kidney preserved in wine spirits, accompanied by a letter. The scrawled, barely literate note began with the words, "From hell." The writer claimed to have fried and eaten the other half of the kidney. This from hell letter was different. Its tone was not tauntingly playful like Dear Boss, but guttural and macabre. Police took it far more seriously. Medical examinations of the kidney were inconclusive, but many believed it was from the Ripper's latest victim. It remains one of the most disturbing and debated artifacts in the history of crime. Was it genuine, or another, even more twisted hoax designed to stoke the public's terror? We will likely never know for sure. The final confirmed murder occurred on November 9, 1888. It was the most brutal of them all, taking place not in a dark alley, but indoors, in a small, sparse room on Miller's Court. After this, the killings simply stopped. Did Jack the Ripper die? Was he imprisoned for another crime? Or did he simply move away, content that his reign of terror was complete? The silence was almost as unnerving as the murders themselves. The police investigation continued for years, but the trail grew colder with each passing day. The fog of uncertainty never truly lifted from the case. Over the years, a vast rogues gallery of suspects has been proposed. The list is long and varied, including doctors, artists, and even members of the royal family. There was Montague Druitt, a barrister and schoolteacher who disappeared around the time of the last murder. Aaron Kazminski, a Polish immigrant who worked as a hairdresser and suffered from severe mental illness, was a favored suspect of one of the lead investigators. There was also Surin Kolosovsky, also known as George Chapman, a convicted poisoner who many at the time believed was the Ripper. But for every suspect, there is a counter-argument, a piece of evidence that doesn't quite fit. No charge was ever brought. The identity of Jack the Ripper remains one of history's greatest unsolved mysteries. The Ripper's legacy, however, is undeniable. The case exposed the shocking poverty and social conditions of London's East End, forcing society to confront the dark underbelly it had long ignored. But more than that, it changed the very nature of police work forever. The struggle to identify the killer highlighted the need for more advanced forensic techniques. Use of crime scene photography became more systematic. The concept of criminal profiling, trying to understand the psychology of an unknown subject, was born from the desperate attempts to get inside the Ripper's mind. The media frenzy surrounding the case also set a new, often problematic precedent for how crime is reported. Jack the Ripper was never caught, but his shadow looms large over the history of criminology. He was a ghost who forced the world to modernize its fight against the darkness, mystery that even today continues to haunt us from the foggy depths of the Victorian age. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more journeys into history's greatest mysteries.